Hello and welcome along to Mondo Chalavet Movies. My name is John and this video is going to be part 3 in my video Nasties collection. Now you're going to be surprised at some of the titles on here. I know I was when I went through the huge list of 82 titles that were kind of on the section 3 list. So section 3 means that the police had the right to come in and take these movies off the shelf if they wanted to. Now I think that some of these movies are quite ludicrous to have on here, and some of them you would think actually should be on a bit higher up on the list. It's a bit weird how they sort of graded all these ones. So I think the people who own the video shops thought to themselves, well, I think we'll just take them off the shelves, because I'll go through, when I show you these movies, I'll show you if I remember seeing them on the video shelves, and there's quite a few that were missing on there, quite a few big titles that you wanted to go and get and you had no chance of getting. The section 3 list had 82 titles on it. Now when I went through and had a look at them, I thought I would have had more of these ones, but there's a lot of the ones that I haven't heard of at all. And when I looked at them, some of them I thought there's no way on earth I want to see that film, I want to own that film. Some of them I can see are quite bad, some of them I've actually had and I've let go because I didn't like them in one bit. I'll talk about them at the end of the video. And also I'll tell you what's coming up with future installments on Video Nasties on my channel. First up, let's talk about the elephant in the room, or should I say the Exorcist in the room. Now a lot of people would, and myself would imagine, that this movie was on this list somewhere. I mean, this movie, it's a brilliant movie, don't get us wrong, it's one of the best horrors you'll ever see. But it's got a lot of stuff in here that you would think, wow, the censors would have had a field day with it. And strangely enough, it's not the list at all. But it's one of those ones that, well, I'll give it like an honorary section 3, because I know that when you thought, I'll go and see The Exorcist because I know it hasn't been banned, there's no way on earth you could get this from the video shop. In fact, there's one video shop that used to be around the corner from me that's still, well, the shop's still there, but the video shop's obviously long gone. And he used to rent them out, underneath the counter for you. So that's the only place to get it, and it was amazing to know that you could actually go and get The Exorcist from there. And I used to go there a lot to get The Exorcist, as I think it was a big queue for it actually. So anyway, yeah, surprisingly enough, The Exorcist is not on any of this lists. It took it a long time to get re-released on DVD, because this one seemed to just be one that no one really wanted to touch at that particular point. I think Warner Brothers were waiting to see what was going on with this whole debacle with Video Nasties, which kind of calmed down in about the year 2000. This is when this came out. So, honorary mention to The Exorcist. First up is Christmas Evil. Now, I should have watched this last year, but I didn't. I actually got this the year before, and it sat in the shelves waiting for Christmas to come, and of course it's come and went. I do think I would, I don't know if I'd watch this any time apart from Christmas, but I am interested in watching this. It was one of the top of the ones that I wanted to see at Christmas. Never got around to it. Don't know too much about this movie. I was surprised to see it on the list, and also I do know that John Waters is a big fan of this movie, so that's a massive box tick for me. So that's Christmas Evil. Next up is Alice, Sweet Alice. Now, I remember knowing about this movie before it came out, and I'm sure when it came out over here, I thought, that's definitely been on the list. I know it's on the section 3 list, but I thought it was higher up on the list. And when I got it, I was interested to see if it had anything that would have a little bit of a nasty theme to it. And there's a few things in it where you can tell why that they've put this on the list, or they weren't too pleased about it. It's a slasher in essence, but there's a lot more to it than that. And it is quite nasty in some of its themes. And it deals with a sort of problem girl, and what she gets up to. So I think it's a great film actually, and it looks pretty good on this release. I know Arrow released it, but in the US. So that's Alice, Sweet Alice. Next up is a Stone Cold classic. It is Deep Red. Now this is one of my favourite films of all time. I've got to say that I just have so much fun with this movie. I can see why it was sort of talked about. There is some quite grisly murders with implements. And that's one of the things that probably the censors were looking at. And I know that when I was watching the DVD about these movies, it said that probably the people, when they were watching them, they watched about the first 10-15 minutes. And if they saw a grisly murder, they would put it on the list. Now this does have a grisly murder at the start, and probably that's going to go for most of these movies when they say, oh, because some of them aren't that bad. But when you look at the first 15 minutes of something, they thought, right, that's going to be off. And also when I was watching the video as well, I did see that some of the people, when they were testing the videos, had most of them on fast forward as well. They were probably fast forward into the scenes. Now maybe they took a scene out of context, I don't know. So that might be another reason why some of these ones were a little bit crazily put onto these lists. But this is an absolute classic. This is the 4K, it looks spectacular. So that's Deep Red. Next up is the one that I was quite surprised to see on this list. It is Foxy Brown. Now this is the blaxploitation movie starring Pam Grier. Now, the reason why I'm surprised to see this on here, because there was another movie of hers called Coffee, and that was really over the top. And I don't know if that's ever been released on VHS. I can't remember seeing it. I think I saw this one in the video library. I just think that this one isn't that bad. So maybe they didn't like the sort of gunplay and knife play in this movie. I'm not too sure, but it's a bit of a surprise one. That's Foxy Brown. Next up is the one that I used to get out of the video shop all the time. In fact, I used to get out on a loop, and it's one of the ones I used to watch all the time. I love this series, and I'm quite surprised to see it on here. But then again, when I think about it, when this sort of this whole video nasty thing came about, this movie seemed to be very hard to track down. There's only a few that used to stock it, and when they used to stock it, it used to be kind of a little bit like The Exorcist. It's a bit like it's under the counter, and it is Friday the 13th. Now, I don't think this movie is that bad, but obviously it's got a lot of violence against women and all that type of thing. It's the thing that the censors frowned upon. I don't think it's as graphic as any of the other films, but I do think that maybe this was one that they thought, right, they kind of lumped a few into these categories and thought, right, there's a few that we're going to have to actually get rid of, or if they're in the shops, we can take. And maybe it's one of those ones where maybe if a shop never got raided, they could put all these ones out, but they just thought, well, what happens if we get raided and all these things get taken away, smashed, don't get any compensation or anything like that. So you can imagine why people didn't want to put these on the shelves, because to buy them, I think there were, quite a lot of money for the video stockers to buy them, to put them on the shelves, maybe about £100. So, it was a bit of an expensive gamble to have them on the shelves. So that's Friday the 13th. The same being said for Friday the 13th Part 2. Now, I think it's a great movie. These movies are great, and I think that it was a bit of a knee-jerk one with this. But I think when you got covers like this, they were kind of on the shelves, and they stood out from the crowd, and you thought, right, well, we didn't think that. We used to love looking at this type of thing. It was just like a smorgasbord of violence at the top, on the top shelf, But obviously the police and people like that didn't like that, so when they came in, they would have a look at them and they'd probably take them off, probably for the covers more than the film, or maybe had a look at the opening scenes. So it's a bit of a shame that these ones fell foul. I do remember this one being easier to get than Friday the 13th when it was on the video shelves, but really Friday the 13th and Friday the 13th Part 2 were a bit of the harder ones to get. It seemed like Part 3 was easy and Part 4 was easy again in the shelves, but I think they had been trimmed a little bit maybe. Yeah, in fact Part 3 had been trimmed by a couple of seconds here and there. So that's Friday the 13th Part 2. Next up is Graduation Day. This is quite a good movie actually. I do like it. It's long out of print now, and I can't remember seeing this on the shelf, although I do remember seeing it. I have seen it. When I got it, I thought, yes, I know what's happening in this one. It's released by 88 Films, and it's number 1 in the Slasher Classics collection. Great movie, great. It's got some great twists in it when it comes to the killer and revealed and all that. It's quite a good watch and all that, but it's pretty hard to get now these days. Isn't it funny when you think, right, this is coming out, this is on the shelves, this is going to be here forever. But I think a word of warning is, if you see movies like this that you wanted to get from the yesteryear, I would just say get it immediately, because you never know when these things go out of print. That's Graduation Day. Next up is Happy Birthday to Me. This is by Indicator. I tell you what, the picture quality in here is absolutely stunning. It's one of the best looking sort of video nasties type thing that you can see, and the picture quality on it is just absolutely jaw-dropping. This is a great special edition from Indicator, as they all are when they get them on special editions. Lovely booklet inside. The movie itself is it's quite a good one. It's quite one of them sort of slashers that came out. Graduation Day, Friday the 13th, Halloween, all them type of things that had to be around a sort of an event, and this is about a birthday party, kind of. So yeah, so this is it's a decent movie as well, and it's one of those ones like The Burning and that type of thing that you just like, and you remember getting out of the video shops. Remember this one being a video shop. Obviously, the cover drew you to it immediately. I mean, when you see that, you think, I have got to see this. Usually, actually, when you get these movies and you see that, it's never as good as what it looks like on the actual cover. But it's a decent movie, actually. I did like it. That's Happy Birthday to Me. Next up was a funny one. I remember this one being out, and then it vanished, and then it came out again in pre-cert form. And I actually had the pre-cert of it, really good cover on it. And it was one of those ones where you thought, people used to go on, this movie is going to be terrible, isn't it? And it's not that bad. When you told them, it's not rough at all. I know there's things about cannibalism in it. I think that's what tipped it over the edge. But it was never really taken off the shelves. And actually, when you see it now, I know it's an 18, but to me it's more like a 15. It is The Hills of Eyes. Now, I like this movie. I think it's a great movie. This is the Blu-ray. It's not the 4K. Might upgrade to 4K. I don't really think I need to. If I get it cheap enough, I will. But I haven't seen it cheap enough, so I haven't got it. I'm more than happy with this Blu-ray. I do like the movie, but I don't think it's one of the nastiest movies you see. And if you see it on the list of nasties and you go for it, you'd be quite disappointed because you'll not be treated to anything, I would say, exploitational. Although it's a good watch. That's The Hills of Eyes. Next up is a great movie. It is The Last Horror Film. Now, this was released quite a while back on 88 Films, and this is when I started to think, oh, maybe this company's wanting to watch, and they certainly are. Now, this movie here was quite brutal, actually, and I know a lot of people used to talk about it when they talk about the nasties. It was always one of the ones that was mentioned in that group for like ones you wanted to get. I do think it's a great film. It's a strange film, actually, because it's like semi-autobiographical in a way about a Cannes Film Festival and this sort of stalker that stalks this star. And it's a decent watch, but a strange watch, I feel. It's always a bit odd, but I like the way it was a bit odd. And it seems very low budget, but it wasn't that low budget. But it's a great little film, actually, and one that always used to get talked about in the Video Nasties collection. So this one was very hard to get on VHS. I remember it. This is one of the reasons why some of these movies, even though they weren't really in the Video Nasties list, they were kind of lumped in with it. And they were always one of the ones that you wanted to get, but they were really hard to get. And I think that was why back in the day on the VHS, these ones were very expensive. And you would automatically think, it's obviously got to be on the Video Nasties list, although it is, but very in the watered down list of Section 3. So that's The Last Horror Film. Next up is Mark of the Devil. Now, I always remember hearing about this movie, and it said it was really brutal and over the top. And when Arrow announced it, this is when Arrow used to release all these type of movies, these really ones that you wanted to see. And that's one of the best things about Arrow, although they don't seem to do it that much anymore, which I really wish that Arrow would get back to that. I think that's why 88 have sort of picked up the mantle and ran with it. And that's why I go for more 88 stuff, because they sort of put out the things that I really want to see. But Mark the Devil came out, and I know this is like it's an old film, but it was meant to be really shocking for the time. And when I watched it, I thought, wow, there's a lot in this movie that you could really understand why the censors didn't like it. This would make me think that this movie should be very high up in the list. It is quite extreme for its time, and I'm really surprised that this movie is not talked about a lot more. And it's really over the top in its violence. So that's Mark of the Devil. Next up is another head scratcher. It is Night of the Living Dead. Now this is, everybody knows about this movie. It's absolutely brilliant. There's nothing bad you can say about this movie. I love it. But the whole thing of it's black and white, it's graphic to a certain extent, although the graphic stuff doesn't happen in the first, till the end. And I really don't know how people could have thought that this was going to be anything but a sort of landmark film that said a lot more than they probably thought. It's not just a zombie movie; it's got a lot of social commentary in it, and it just shows you how stupid this whole thing was. Because if they lump this in, probably on the back of Dawn of the Dead, they lump it in and say, right, I'll get that one in as well. I don't know what they were thinking of, because there's nothing in this one that could actually really offend anybody. In fact, I'm surprised it's a 15. So when I was looking through the DVD, I thought, I don't think this will be on. Then, of course, it came on and I went, wow, I don't really understand this one. But it just shows you, like I say, with most of these titles, they're just really bizarrely put onto this, probably for some tenuous link to being a zombie film. So that's Night of the Living Dead. Now, this is the movie that I absolutely love. And I remember seeing this on the shelves on VHS, but I never got it out. And it is Pigs. Now, I got this, I didn't really realise that it was on this list until I was looking through here. And I thought, wow, well, I can understand in a way, because of the sort of, there's a lot of things in it that, although it's not explicit, kind of it is sometimes. I didn't expect this to be ever put on this list because it's so unknown. So the other title here is Daddy's Deadly Darling. And that sort of makes more sense to this movie, although there is pigs in it that do eat the bodies of the people that they kill. And I just think this has just got everything going for it. It's a really early, grimy, grindhouse movie from 1972. The acting in it is absolutely amazing. And the person who plays the female in here, she's brilliant. And the director, who also plays the old man in here, their father and daughter in real life as well, which is unbelievable considering what happens in the movie. I just think this was just a tour de force, actually, and it's one of them ones where I put it on. I must have watched this a few times now, And I didn't expect I was going to like it. I thought, oh, it's one of these just cheap throwaway ones from the 70s, and you think, no, it'll be what it is now. I was collecting this range, this 88 volts range, but there's a lot of them that I didn't really care for, so only got a few of them. But highly recommended by me, that's Pigs. Next up is another classic, Rabid. Now this movie is by David Cronenberg. I think it's absolutely brilliant. This is a great version from 101 Films, and I just think that I could understand why this was on the list, actually. It's got certain things in it which are a little bit near the mark. It's not as graphic as you would think, but I do remember this one being in this form. This was the video cover. I remember this is another one that you used to see all the time, then it just vanished, even though you knew it wasn't banned because we had a good idea what was banned, because it was always talked about in the newspapers. But this one was never talked about, but you just knew there were certain titles that just wouldn't get through. I think another one that you never used to see afterwards was Shivers. Now that one isn't on the list at all, but I do think it was one of the ones that you thought, oh well, maybe they just got a thing about David Cronenberg and they just want to take this sort of body horror thing out of the way as well. So it's a shame that it ever got taken off. And I remember used to get out the video shop quite a few times, and I was so pleased to see this one coming out with this cover as well. So that's Rabid. Next up is The Prowler, or Rosemary's Killer as it was known in the UK. I remember getting this out the video shop all the time. I love this film. It was so good. It was one of them ones that used to look great on VHS. It was just one of the ones that you always went for. And I remember this one being kind of, it vanished for a little bit, but then it came back again, a bit like Hills of Eyes. So I got out immediately. But this is a great version from Blue Underground, and it looks spectacular on Blu-ray. I would imagine they could be getting a 4K out of this one, because I think that one could look really good in that. So that's The Prowler, or Rosemary's Killer. Next up is Scanners. Now I can imagine this being in here because of the obvious things, heads exploding. And I don't think it's a great movie, and I don't think it should have been put on here because David Cronenberg's movies are more artistic than they are horror. But I think that as soon as you got people's heads exploding, then they just immediately get taken off, which is a shame because I don't think this movie deserved it the same as his other movies that was on here. I think that it was just a bit of a shame that they had to be taken off. But anyway, I enjoy this movie. I think it's a great movie, and I remember it. Once it got taken off the shelves, I never saw it come back. It's one of the ones that I remember getting out, and really we used to get out and have a bit of a get-together with your mates and watch these movies. But this one didn't seem to come back out again for me. That's Scanners. Next up is Shogun Assassin. Now this is in this set, the Lone Wolf and Cub set from Criterion. This is an amazing set. If you can get this set, please do. You'll be amazed at how good these films looked. But what they did was they took, I think they remixed the first two movies and put them into this Shogun Assassin, which I really like actually. I love the music on Shogun Assassin. Now you can instantly see why this one was on this list, although I thought this one would have been much further up. I thought this would have been in the Section 1 ones, if I'm honest, because it's so violent. It's over the top violence, but some of the blood spurts and the actual the knife play in here is just ridiculous, and it's really stunning to me that it's so low on this in the Section 3. But I do urge anybody to see Shogun Assassin if you can. See this. All the films in here are great. I think there's about 6 films in this Lone Wolf and Cub series. But if you can get the Shogun Assassin version of this movies, I do urge you to see it, just mainly for the actual music as well. It's a great movie, and it plays out very well. Even though it's 2 movies put together, you can't really tell. I mean, I never knew that until much later. That's Shogun Assassin. Next up is a movie that was called Street Killers on the list on the DVD, but I know it as Mad Dog Killer. I was quite surprised when that came up. I thought, hang on a minute, I'm sure I've seen that movie, and then it started telling me about the stuff in it. I thought, oh yeah, that's definitely that one, Mad Dog Killer. Now, this is about somebody who is he's a crazy man, and he kidnaps this girl, and then they go on this bit of a rampage. She sort of gets in with him, although she doesn't want to at the first, and then she gets kind of drawn into this madness that this fella's got. And it just shows you their sort of spree across Italy. And if I'm honest, it's a decent film, and I'm surprised how graphic it was actually when I watched it. Not knowing it was on any of these lists, I thought, oh, this is a bit over the top. I mean, it's one of the ones that quite surprises you in this range. Sometimes you can get ones that you don't know anything about, and you can say, I think I should have known something about this movie because of how brutal it was. I didn't even know it was released in the UK before this. Highly recommended, actually. That's Mad Dog Killer. Next up was another one of those movies that went away and didn't come back. although I think it should have done. Although I can see there's a lot of violence in this, but I think it's done in a way that kind of is very pertinent to the story. But of course, try telling the censors that, or the police, and it is Suspiria. Now, I think this movie's it's a visual treat. It's so stylistic, and it's so arty that I don't think you can personally get offended by this movie. There's a lot of violence in it, but I think because it's so well done, I think the violence isn't as violent. If I'm honest, I don't know if that makes any sense. But to me, I wasn't surprised to see this on the list. I thought it would have been in section 2 actually, because I knew back in the day in VHS it did get taken off the shelves, it did disappear. I do urge anybody who hasn't seen this movie, if you can get it in the 4K from Synapse, you are in for a treat. This is by far the best this film is ever going to look, and it just looks absolutely stunning. It's probably my best 4K of an old horror film, and it's just there's nothing can touch it for me. That's Suspiria. Now this movie here seems to be the poster boy for section 3 titles. This movie vanished and it never came back again. And I remember people saying when the sort of laws were getting relaxed towards the end of the video libraries, saying, where is this movie? And people saying, oh, we can't touch it. And you say, well, why not? It's not that bad. But of course it had a name and it had a reputation, and that preceded it. And it is the Texas Chainsaw Massacre. Now that title obviously is going to get you. I mean, before I even knew this film existed, I heard the title and I thought, I have got to see that movie, as probably most people did. And it really did not come back again. And I think it was one of those ones where people would say, you can't have that one because you will get prosecuted. And people would say, well, no, there's just a bit of a grey area. And everybody honestly thought that this was like one of the biggest banned video nasties of all time. And it wasn't. It wasn't banned at all, but I know that the video shops didn't touch this one, the barge pole, not that I knew of as well. I never ever saw this again in the video shops. Also, I always do this when I've got this movie out. I'll show you my signed picture from Shogun Assassin, the original Leatherface, and that was got for me by my good friend John Hall. He stood in line and got the video, and they got this signed by him for me, and so thanks John for that. And when John's back on my channel, I think we'll talk about that, the signing of the Shogun Assassin signature. So that's the Texas Chainsaw Massacre. So this next title is probably the most accomplished movie on this list, and it is The Thing. Now, everybody knows this is just a stone cold classic, and it looks spectacular on this 4K. This movie is more than just a horror movie. It's got everything else going for it. It's got the special effects are absolutely amazing. I just think that probably the special effects maybe set it apart because there's a lot of things happening in the special effects, and I think it drew attention to itself, especially the cover of it. But I don't know how they could have sort of got anything from this to say why it needed to be banned because are taken off the shelves. I do think that this was one of the ones that stayed on the shelves. I can't remember this ever going off the shelf for me. I remember getting this out of the video shop loads and loads of times, and it was still uncut on video, even though the video was very dark. But this one shouldn't have been in the mix at all. That's The Thing. Next up was a movie that I always thought was in the 72 banned video nasties. It is Extra. I was really surprised to see this was a section 3 title. I've just bought this one. I knew it would come out, and I should have got it on its original form, which was a nice special edition from Second Sight. But this one looks really nice, and it's got 3 cuts of the movie as well, which all look spectacular. I'm dying to see this movie. I'll be seeing it soon because I'm going through some video nasties, watching them at the minute. I'm having a great time with them actually, and some of them are a lot better than I thought they were. This movie, I can understand why it was kind of mentioned because there's quite a lot of graphic stuff in here with this alien and this woman and all that type of thing. It's a bit there's a lot of things happening in it, like body horror, and I could understand why this was in the same mix, and that's why I thought it was actually much higher up on the list. So funny to see it was a section 3 because I know that this is another one that was out on the video and we got it in video library and we thought it was really good, although it's quite dark on video, and it vanished and never come back out. So yeah, that made me think when you had these movies that never saw the light of day again when they were taken off the shelves, and you would know because you would be looking at the shelves that many times. You'd probably go to the video shop every day, and when you saw these you'd seen where the gaps were and you thought, hang on a minute, and you expected some of them to come back when you got a bit more knowledge about what was banned and why they were banned. But this one just never seemed to come back out. But it's a great film actually, one that's a bit underrated actually, but I wouldn't touch the sequels with a barge pole. That's Extra. Next up is Zombie Holocaust, or as known here, the American title, Dr. Butcher MD. This is by far the best version of this movie, and it does come, as it says on here, it does come with a free sick bag. Wow, which I don't think you need. And well, I like the touch of that. This movie, I like this movie actually. It's Zombie Holocaust is a bit more kind of like a zombie movie, but it's also like a sort of cannibal movie as well. It's quite a decent movie. It's quite gory. It's not the goriest of zombie movies, but of course with it being called Zombie and Holocaust in it, what do you think was going to happen with that title? That's another one that vanished straight away. I honestly thought Zombie Holocaust was much higher up on the list, probably because of the reputation it had. And I do think it's a shame that these movies just ever got ones that didn't need to be taken off. They could have left it just because it had zombie in it. It got taken off, which is a bit futile if you ask me. But I do like this movie. This has two cuts of the movie. It has the Dr. Butcher MD cut and also the Zombie Holocaust cut, which are slightly different, but not too different. But I think this is by far the best. It's by 7 as well. So that's Dr. Butcher MD or Zombie Holocaust. Next up is Dawn of the Dead, or Zombies Dawn of the Dead as it was known on pre-cert. Now this is one of the ones where we used to get out the shop all the time, and when this was put on this list, the section 3 list had vanished. And this one used to go for quite a lot of money, even though it was quite badly cut actually. Had a few of the really good ghost scenes gone. It's quite short running time on the VHS one, but it was pretty good. I remember seeing this in the cinema, and we had an absolute blast with it on like a re-release. We couldn't believe the violence that was in it, and it was funny because when I saw it before I saw the VHS, and I remember this the head explosion and the shotguns and all that. And then when it was on the VHS, I was said, oh, hang on, there's a bit missing out of that. And I think I had an argument with somebody for a long time to say, well, it's not there. And I said, well, yeah, but it was. It's been cut out. No, it hasn't. Yes, it has. All that type of thing. So yeah, so Dawn of the Dead is absolute, as you know, it's an absolute classic. What can you say about it? It's just phenomenal. This one obviously now has got all the versions in here. It's in 4K. It looks stunning. But yeah, so of course, it is a gory film. There's no getting away from it. Although it's got a lot more human in it, you would think. And I do think that it was just lumped in with this whole zombie thing. Although this is probably one of the most goriest zombie films you would ever see at that time. And it was a shame. It was really hard to get, and it was one of the ones that you were you wanted to get. It's funny because this has took a long time to come out again from the Arrow release, which was about 2011, and it used to go for stupid money. And this one here, the 4K, is great to have it now out in the shops and you can go and buy it. Because this has always been a funny one for rights. I think George A. Romero's had a lot of rights problems over the years with Night of the Living Dead and Dawn of the Dead. He just doesn't seem to have a good releasing program for his movies, which is a bit of a shame actually, because this movie needs to be available at all times. It's one of my favourite films of all time, one of my favourite horror films of all time. And I did actually think this would be a little bit higher up on the list, but I'm so glad that it's now available in this condition, 4K, and also it's obviously out as a standard one now, which looks spectacular as well. So that's Zombies, Dawn of the Dead. Next up is a comedy classic. It's one of the funniest films you'll ever see. It is Zombie Lake. This movie is nuts, and it's so funny and it's so preposterously bad. You'll never see anything as like rubbish as this, but it's so rubbish it's good, so bad it's good. The acting is abysmal. The storylines are like fantastic. The way that these whole things unravel. The zombies look like they've just had like a bit of green paint put on them, and some of the interactions the zombies have with each other. They'll like argue over things. They'll fight over things. One of the zombies does have a daughter in it, and he goes for a walk holding hands with his daughter, who isn't bothered by her dad being a zombie in any way, shape or form. In fact, when he comes through the door as a dead Nazi zombie who's all green and stands there and goes, oh, like looks at a amulet he's got on his thing to say more or less like, and she goes, oh, you must be my dad, because the mother had got killed. And although the mother must have got killed maybe 30 years ago, because this is set in 1980 and he got killed in the war, so she's only 8, the daughter. How does this work? It's just baffling, the fact that they've got so many things that are nuts in this movie, but it's just such a good movie. The Blu-ray actually it looks stunning. The picture quality in here is stunning, but it's got a lot of dirt on the picture. I do think this would make a great 4K, although I don't know who would release this but it must have an audience there somewhere. I know the people who like it really like it. That's Zombie Lake, a cult horror comedy classic. Okay, so I've got my list here. I'll quickly go through the ones that I used to have but I've let go. First up is The Demons, 1976. It's Jess Franco film. This is his version of The Devils. and I found it to be one of the worst films I've ever seen. I should have kept it actually because I think it's out of print now, but wow, absolutely rubbish. I don't recommend it to anybody. Most of the Jess Franco films I've seen have been absolutely rubbish, although some of them are watchable. Also, Mausoleum, 1982. I remember having the big box of that on VHS, and I did think it was quite a decent film. When I saw the trailer for it on that DVD I was watching, I thought, oh, I wouldn't mind picking that up. But it's one of the movies that it went just kind of on VHS. It was out and about, and then it just vanished, and you just couldn't find it anywhere for love of the money. I probably would have had to go to the States to get it. Another one is Parasite, 1982. That's it was a 3D Charles Band movie, and I remember that. I'm sure I had that on DVD, but I can't remember. I did used to have the big box VHS in it. I did remember liking it. Demi Moore's in it, believe it or not. And I do think this movie would be one of the ones that should be coming out. I might actually have a look at it and see if it's actually out in the States. Also, The Erotic Rites of Frankenstein. This is a 1972 movie by Jess Franco. Now, the monster in here is painted silver with silver spray paint. So that makes you think that's got to be a box tick for me. And to be honest, I couldn't even see this movie. I thought it was utter garbage. I did let it go. I should have kept it if I'm honest, because I think these probably are hard to get. I don't know if I'd ever rewatch them again, but since I know they're on the Section 3 list, I should have really kept them and had them here, but I would never buy them again unless I saw them for literally pennies, but I don't think they'll ever go for pennies. So what other videos can you expect from me from this video nasty range? Well, what I'm going to do is I'm going to go from each section. I'm going to tell you my top 10 at this point in every section from 1, 2 and 3, and give you sort of like my favourites in there, the ones that I think are the best. And there's some great films in this whole I think 154 titles that were kind of ones that you just couldn't really get or would be prosecuted for to having them in the VHS days. So also I've got all my original video cards from the place I used to go to get all these movies out on VHS. Now, of course, I can't find them when I want them, but when I do find them, what I'm going to do is I'm going to go out and about, and I'm going to take you to, I'm going to take a card out, and I'm sure one of them's called the Video Den. And I would say, right, this is the Video Den. I would have got definitely a couple of these ones. I remember, I'll tell you a few stories about each particular shop. I'll tell you if they were a good shop or a bad shop. I know there's shops that were kind of out in the sticks for me, and you thought you hardly ever went there, and when you went there, they were dead disappointing. But I'm hopefully going to find that and then do some out and abouts with that. I'm really excited to do that video, actually. Of course, they're all seem to be fruit shops or flower shops these days. It's crazy how these things work out in the way of things. So also when John Hall comes over next, we're going to definitely do a video on Nasties and our experiences with them, and that should be quite fun. So like I say, there's quite a lot of stuff coming out on this subject over this year and probably in the future as well. So thanks for watching. You take care, and I will see you on the next video. Cheers.